Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Mr. Aleister Crowley. This is Liber 4. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above in the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of Liber 4 with Part 3, Chapter 2, the Formulae of the Elemental Weapons. Before discussing magical formulae in detail, one may observe that most rituals are composite and contain many formulae which must be harmonized into one. That is because there is no correct ceremony, there is no correct tools. There are tools that you can use, but they are not necessary to the procedure. There are ceremonies that you can perform, but they are not necessary to the results. You can use them, but they are not required, and that is why there is not one particular ritual that is perfect, right? That is why you must take most rituals as a composite, and they contain many formulae which must be harmonized. Now, the best magical works, in my estimation, and the ones that I talk about in my book, are internal. That doesn't mean that there are not external things that you can do. It's just a little bit harder to get it done, especially to get it done with the correct motivations. And so be careful, right? All of these things, we're going to start out. Mr. Crowley did not know what he was talking about almost anything. Most of the things that he is relaying in this book are factually incorrect and even detrimental to the practice thereof. And so be exceedingly careful before you follow any of his advice on ceremonies or tools. The first formula is that of the wand. In the sphere of the principle, which the magician wishes to invoke, he rises from point to point in a perpendicular line, and then descends, or else, beginning at the top, he comes directly down, invoking first the god of that sphere by devout supplication. Now, bear in mind, right, for me, this wand is internal. Right, there is the wand by which you direct the magical forces, and it can be your tongue, it can be the chakras. Now, how you interpret that is up to you. I visualize the chakras more as a sword than a wand, but whatever, right? It does not matter either way which one you use. What this is, right, rising from point to point in a perpendicular line, right, that is raising your energies from the bottom to the top or from the top to the bottom, both of which are necessary for manifestation efforts. It is not an either or situation, it is a both situation. Beware, O brother, lest thou bend the knee. Liber 220 teaches the proper attitude. I doubt that highly. And also Liber 300 and, what is that, 60? 50? I think that's 40. I don't know. L, I think, is 20, but it might be 50. I don't know. I'm bad with Roman numerals. I need to look it up and make me a cheat sheet to stick on the wall. Infra, furthermore, there is special instruction, chapter 15 and elsewhere. First, the god of that sphere by, devout supplication that he may deign to send the appropriate archangel. Just like I told you to be exceedingly careful with your ceremonies and tools, be exceptionally careful in which entities that you invoke, which entities that you invite in, because not all of them are aligned for the betterment of humankind, and the ones that are not can lie to you about their motivations. So if you are encountering an entity, there is at least a 50% chance that it is going to be detrimental. The odds may actually be higher than that. He then beseeches the archangel to send the angels or angels of that sphere to his aid. He conjures this angel or angels to send the intelligence in question, and this intelligence he will conjure with authority to compel the obedience of the spirit and his manifestation. To this spirit he issues commands. I have done magical works, right? I know I say this all of the time, but it is important, right? I have had benefits come from this. I have healed myself through the manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation, which is the Holy Spirit. I have outlined those in here. I have not called upon any entities, right? I seek God. God has no name. God is beyond your conception of everything that you can conceive him of. Any conception that you have is already too small. Right? Even mine, right? I do not claim to have full knowledge of the divine. I do have some knowledge of the manipulation of the Holy Spirit. Right? That is the things that I talk about. That is the internal work that I've done. There was no tools, no ceremonies, and no names, no entities involved. That is an important thing to maintain, because while you can do these things, you don't have to. And on top of that, if you are summoning these angels, right, you don't command an angel. You don't have their name. You are not binding them in a circle. You are not binding them in a pentagram. You think that you are. They are allowing you to think that that is actually working, but it is not. They are beyond your comprehension well, not quite in the same way that the divine is, but to a large degree. They are a different type of entity. They have different motivations from you entirely. All right, back to the text. It will be seen that this is a formula rather of evocation than of invocation, and for the latter, the procedure, though apparently the same, should be conceived of in a different manner, which brings it under another formula, that of tetragrammaton. The essence of the force invoked is one, but the god represents the germ or beginning of the force, the archangel, its development, and so on, until with the spirit we have the completion and perfection of that force. The formula of the cup is not so well suited for evocations, and the magical hierarchy is not involved in the same way. For the cup, being passive rather than active, is not fitting for the magician to use it in respect of anything but the highest. In practical working, it consequently means little but prayer, and that prayer the prayer of silence. Considerations which might lead to a contrary conclusion are unsuited to this treatise. See another Liber. The formula of the dagger. Like this right here, like I've said it before and I will continue to say it, this pisses me off. This is him being lazy. This is him intentionally not clarifying things in what is supposed to be a clarifying work. Right? If you are endeavoring to do this, like he can't correct this, it is too late. But if you are endeavoring to do something like this and you are putting something like this in here, you are an asshole. Right? Considerations which might lead to a contrary conclusion are unsuited. Why? You have space. You can make it. There's definitely the ability to clarify. There is the unwillingness to do so, and that is because you want them to go look up a different Liber, to go purchase another book, because this entire thing was about making money. Right? It was about controlling people then, so it wasn't the entire thing. But in large part, it was about making money. It was about selling all of these Libers. And right, he did not live a profitable life for the entirety of his life, despite the fact that he has so many Libers. He still lived off of the charity of others for the majority of his life. That is important to remember. Back to the text. The formula of the dagger is again unsuitable for either purpose, since the nature of the dagger is to criticize, to destroy, and to disperse. This is why, to me, the dagger is going to be more the tongue than it would be the wand. Right? Now, you can look at the wand as the internal chakras aligned correctly, magical wand, able to do magic, and it's quite literally how it works. Or you can look at it as a sword. Either way is perfectly fine. I use it as a sword because discernment comes from the right understanding of your internals. And the sword is the instrument of discernment. Right? It cuts through the wheat and the chaff. It separates the good from the bad. It is the tool used to separate the this from the that. All right. And all true magical ceremonies tend to concentration. Yeah, they are entirely dependent upon it, as a matter of fact. The dagger will therefore appear principally in the banishings, preliminary to the ceremony proper. The formula of the pentacle is again of no particular use, for the pentacle is inert. In fine, the formula of the wand is the only one with which we need more particularly concern ourselves. He has just spent several chapters outlining these weapons, right? These tools that you are to use. And now he is telling you repeatedly that in the process, they are not necessary. I wonder if somebody else has told you the same thing. I mean, you can use these tools as focuses, as memory aids to help you to remember certain things, but they hold no power in and of themselves. All of these tools, to me, are internal. The wand, the dagger, the cup is your understanding. These things are symbolized internally. They are not suited for these magical practices because they are not supposed to be. And indeed, right? The pentacle is the same thing. The pentacle is quite literally your temple, right? This thing, the corporeal body that you use to navigate through 5D space, that is quite literally the pentacle. 5Ds, 5 arms. I wonder if there's a link. And so, once again, no particular use is because that tool that you put upon the altar, it does nothing, right? It is a memory aid. That is all. It holds no power in and of itself. And while you can invest power, it is not wise to do so. And the formula of the wand is only one, right? The wand. Yeah, that's all you need. Now, you do need the dagger because you need to direct your thoughts, right? If the speaking aloud is the amplification of desires, the things which you speak are the things which return. If you are speaking negative, you receive negative. If you are speaking positive, you receive positive. That is because of the dagger. It is part of the manifestation process, the things you speak aloud, right? But it is also your hopes and desires. It is also balancing greed and charity. It is the balance of all of the chakras in the exact correct way to create the wand, which is the thing that you need for manifestation. Later, these remarks are amplified and to some extent modified. Of course, right? You just told us the tools are necessary, then you tell us that they're not, and I'm sure you're going to tell us again that they are. Now, in order to invoke any being, it is said by Hermes Trismegistus that the Magi employ 3 methods. The first, for the vulgar, is that of supplication. In this, the crude objective theory is assumed as true. There is a god named A, whom you, B, proceed to petition, in exactly the same sense as a boy might ask his father for pocket money. The second method involves a little more subtlety, inasmuch as the magician endeavors to harmonize himself with the nature of the god, and to a certain extent exalts himself in the course of the ceremony. But the third method is the only one worthy of our consideration. This consists of a real identification of the magician and the god. Note that to do this in perfection involves the attainment of a species of samadhi, and this fact alone suffices to link the irrefragably magic with mysticism. All right, let's discuss. So, first things first. Now, this supplication, that is what you are used to. If you are in a religious control system, such as Christianity, Judaism, or Islam, lesser extent Buddhism, right? There's less of the deity involved there. But those 3 in particular, the Abrahamic religions, are entirely devoted to supplication. You are going to the God and saying, God, can you please give me this thing? Right? That is what supplication is. Now, this is dismissing that in a way by his words, right? In exactly the same sense as a boy might ask his father for pocket money. That is kind of what it is, but it's casting a negative light upon it. Right? You should be properly aligned. And this method is, while not immediately as beneficial as we will discuss in a second, it does have results, right? There is a process by which this does work, but it takes a whole lot more effort because of the way it is being done. This third method, I'm going to tell you right now, do not do, right? You are free to take my advice or leave it, but if you are watching this, you might want to take my advice, and my advice is to not identify yourself as the God. Do not do that. You are a small, infinitesimally small sliver of the divine that he has portioned off to navigate through 5D space in this, your pentacle or temple of God. You are that small piece, but you are not the entirety of, any more than your fingernail is who you are. right? This is part of you, but it is not you. You are like a piece of a fingernail, not even the whole fingernail, like an atom of the fingernail, just a small part, maybe even the part that's about to get cut off. That's who you are, right? You are not the God. You are not to identify yourself as the God. And if you do, you will reap some results. You will not be happy with them. Ask Mr. Crowley. And look at his life. Once again, I refer you to the very first video in this playlist where we did 2.5 hours of reading about his life. And that brings us to the second method for him and the third method for us, because this is the one that actually works. This is the one that he's dismissing, but it's the one that works. And he's dismissing it because it is the harder thing to do, right? This is you coming into harmony with what God desires in your life. And this is where manifestation really resides. This is the internal shadow work, going in and finding out why you make the mistakes, how you can fix the mistakes, and taking full responsibility for the mistakes, not placing the blame upon someone else, not trying to say that God made you do it or Satan made you do it or anybody else made you do it. You are in charge of your life. You get to make the decisions. You get to decide whether you will harmonize yourself with the creator of all things. Are you working towards the betterment of mankind, or are you working against that? Because those are the only options. Either you are working for everyone or you are not working for everyone. It is that simple. And if you are working for everyone, then you are in alignment with the will of God. Does that mean that you will not make mistakes in the application of that? Absolutely not. We all still have all 7 virtues and vices that we need to balance in our life. And that is the key to this, right? If you want to come into agreement with what God wants in your life, if you want to get to the point where you can manifest, you can buy this book, but I'm going to break it down for you real simple. There are 7 virtues. There are 7 vices. They are opposite sides of a coin. There is love and wrath. That is 2 sides of one coin. There is lust and chastity, second coin. Gluttony and temperance, third coin. Greed and charity, fourth coin. Pride and humility, number 5. Sloth and diligence, 6. And hope and despair, 7. You are to come into accordance with these. Now, hope and despair, that is you seeking the silver lining in the situation, even if it is a terrible situation. That would be hope. Despair is finding the lead lining no matter what happens, even if it is positive. That is despair, right? You are to walk in the middle of those. You are not to be so hopeful that you do not see reality, but you are not supposed to deny the good things in your life and only focus on the bad. There is a balance to be stricken between these things. Next up, we've got sloth and diligence. Sloth is not working. It is sitting on your ass expecting things to come to you. Diligence is putting your nose to the grindstone and going, doing the thing that needs to be done. And you are meant to harmonize that. Your life is divided, like a day is 24 hours. That can be divided into 3 separate parts. One for the body, one for the mind, one for the spirit. The one for the body is your work. You are meant to work. It should be about 1/3 of your day, about 8 hours. You are meant to play. That part, that's for your soul. That is for you to enjoy yourself. And it should also be about 8 hours a day. And then you get to sleep. And that part is for your spirit. That part should also be about 8 hours a day. There should be a relative balance into your day. And sloth and diligence will be balanced if you do these things. If you are working towards your goal diligently for a portion of your day, it doesn't have to be exactly 8 hours. But that is a good division for it. There is a reason why that became the commonplace workday. Right? You should be doing things which you enjoy for 8 hours a day. Right? That is the balance between sloth and diligence. Next up, we've got pride and humility. Pride is taking pride in the things that you do. Humility is not. You should be prideful if you have done a job well done, but it does not make you better than anyone. Right? And so everyone is exactly the same, and if you come to that realization that we are all human, right? Not that everybody has the same capabilities or the same upbringing or the same results, but we are all human. Therefore, we are all the same. We are all created by God exactly equal. Our decisions make us different, not the temple. And so coming to that realization that we are all the same, that is humility. Right? That is understanding that you are not better than anyone. That is humility. But you do make choices, and your choices might be a little bit better than someone else's. That you can take pride in that. If you are making good, informed choices for the betterment of humanity, you're doing better than most people. Take pride in that, but it does not make you better. It means that you make better decisions. Next up, we have greed and charity. Greed is the loving of the things of the mortal coil just a little bit too much, and charity is the giving away of those things, right? That is not loving them quite enough, and neither one is good. There is a balance there, and that balance is to give the appropriate energy in the appropriate way. And so if someone is in need, you can give them what they need, not necessarily what they want. This also breaks down into time, so you can be greedy with your time. Money is only in exchange for time, and so if you are greedy with your money, you're being greedy with your time. You are meant to give things away. You are meant to have things, and that is the balance between. You are not meant to give away all that you own and come. You are not meant to accumulate everything in the world. There is a balance to be stricken. Next up is gluttony and temperance. Gluttony is the overconsumption of the mortal coil. Temperance is the underconsumption of the mortal coil, and neither one is intrinsically good. You're supposed to eat. You were supposed to eat pretty much everything, right? If you do not have an allergy, which is life-threatening, you are meant to eat things. That includes meat. That includes sugar for everyone on the planet. Now, if you're diabetic, do it in moderation. If you have some of these, I forget what the name of it is, but you get bit by the Lone Star tick and you can't digest meat or red meat, and those things change your situation. I'm not casting judgment, right? But for most people, for the overwhelming majority, you are meant to eat all of the things. You are not meant to be a vegetarian. You have canines for a reason. Your body is able to digest meat for a reason, right? And you are not meant to exclude sugars or things like that. Those are an important part of life. They keep you energized. That does not mean to overconsume. That would be gluttony. But also not to underconsume. That would be temperance. And you are to find the balance between. And then next up, we got lust and chastity. The sexual pleasures and the denial thereof. And neither one is intrinsically good. You are meant to have sexual relations. Most probably with one person. Right? There are exceptions to every rule, and some people are called to complete chastity, some people are called to polygamy. It is a vanishingly small percentage of the population. Both of those are less than 1%. Right? It is almost certainly not you. There are many intrinsic problems with polygamy, mainly being that a sexual relationship should be open and honest with free exchange of affections, right? You and your spouse should be committed to each other in a way that is pretty exclusive. There are some very few people who are able to do that with multiple people. It is not most people, it is very few. And the chances of finding two of those people that can do this in the right way is small. The chances of finding three is even smaller than that, and the more you add, the smaller the chances become to have the proper alignment in a relationship. But you are meant to have a relationship. You are meant to procreate for almost everyone on the planet. That is the balance. To find that partner and to be committed to that partner is the balance. That is coming into alignment. And then finally, we have love and wrath. Love is affection, right? Giving away of affection. And wrath is not having that affection returned. That's what causes anger. Not all the time, most of the time. And so finding the balance thereof. You are supposed to love everybody, but people do make some pretty terrible choices. And so while you are to love them as a human, you don't necessarily align yourself with those who are doing the wrong things. On the opposite end of that is wrath, and that is love unreturned, and so you are supposed to return the love that is given to you. But again, there are exceptions because people make choices. When you can align these 7 things to get to the balance in the middle of it, that is where this happens. That is where real manifestation comes into being, because you are aligned with the betterment, because you are aligned with the will of the Creator, because you are doing the steps that you know need to be done. Then you get the rewards. Just going and asking, you might. There is a possibility, but it is a small one. Identifying yourself as God, you might get a result. You might. Blood magic does work. Sex magic does work. But they have repercussions that are quite phenomenal. They are quite noticeable. And once again, I refer you to the wiki. All right. Back to the text. Let us describe the magical method of identification. The symbolic form of the god is first studied with as much care as an artist would bestow upon his model, so that a perfectly clear and unshakable mental picture of the god is presented to the mind. Similarly, the attributes of the god are enshrined in speech, and such speeches are committed perfectly to memory. The invocation will then begin with a prayer to the god, commemorating his physical attributes, always with profound understanding of their real meaning. In the second part of the invocation, the voice of the god is heard, and his characteristic utterance is recited. In the third portion of the invocation, the magician asserts the identity of himself with the god. Don't do that. In the fourth portion, the god is again invoked, but as if by himself. That seems brilliant. As if this were the utterance of the will of the god that he should manifest in the magician. There you go. Open yourself up for some possession. You can be possessed by entities if you allow it, if you give permission, if you remove yourself from the vessel without the proper protections. You can be taken over. There are entities that are disincorporated, and if you are manifesting something within yourself, it is definitely not God. At the conclusion of this, the original object of the invocation is stated. Thus, in the invocation of Teoti, which is to be found in the Rite of Mercury, in another one of his books, and in Liber, the first part begins with the words, Majesty of Godhead, O wisdom crowned Teoti, thee I invoke, O thou of the ibis head, thee I invoke, and so on. At the conclusion of this, a mental image of the god, infinitely vast and infinitely splendid, should be perceived, and in just the same sense as a man might see the sun. You will probably see exactly what you intend to see. I don't have that problem, right? Aphantasia, I don't get to intentionally imagine anything. I wouldn't have that problem, but most people would. The second part begins with the words, Behold, I am yesterday, today, and the brother of tomorrow. So you're not tomorrow too, right? You're not going to be all three. You're just going to be two out of the three. Really? Really? Okay. The magician should imagine that he is hearing this voice, and at the same time that he is echoing it, that it is true also of himself. This thought should so exalt him that he is able at its conclusion to utter the sublime words which open the third part. Behold, he is in me, and I am in him. That sounds something. At this moment he loses consciousness of his mortal being. He is that mental image which he previously but saw. This consciousness is only complete as he goes on. Mine is the radiance wherein Ptah floateth over his firmament. I travel upon high, I tread upon the firmament of Nu. I raise a flashing flame with the lightnings of mine eye, ever rushing on in the splendor of the daily glorified Ra, giving my life to the treaders of earth. This thought gives the relation of God and man from the divine point of view. The magician is only recalled to himself at the conclusion of the third part, in which occur almost as if by accident the words, Therefore do all things obey my word. Yet in the fourth part, which begins, Therefore do thou come forth unto me, it is not really the magician who is addressing the god. It is the god who hears the far-off utterance of the magician. If this invocation has been correctly performed, the words of the fourth part will sound distant and strange. It is surprising that a dummy, so the magus now appears to himself, should be able to speak. The Egyptian gods are so complete in their nature, so perfectly spiritual, and yet so perfectly material, that this one invocation is sufficient. The god bethinks him that the spirit of Mercury should now appear to the magician, and it is so. The Egyptian formula is therefore to be preferred to the hierarchical formula of the Hebrews with its tedious prayers, conjurations, and curses. There is something there. It will be noted, however, that this invocation of Teoti, which we have summarized, there is another formula contained, the reverberating or reciprocating formula, which may be called the formula of Horus and Harpocrates. The magician addresses the god with an active projection of his will and then becomes passive while the god addresses the universe. In the fourth part, he remains silent, listening to the prayer which arises therefrom. That one might actually be effective, right? That one, where you are addressing the creator and listening back by being silent, may actually do something. And I would even say probably will. The formula of this invocation of Teote may be classed under tetragrammaton. The first part is fire, the eager prayer of the magician. The second, water, in which the magician listens to or catches the reflection of the god. The third part is air, the marriage of fire and water. The god and man have become one, while the fourth part corresponds to earth, the condensation or materialization of those three higher principles. With regard to the Hebrew formula, it is doubtful whether most magicians who use them have ever properly grasped the principles underlying the method of identity. Speak of yourself, buddy. And that is not to say that he is wrong, right? It's just to say that he also did not have, right? He did not grasp the principles underlying the method. That is patently obvious both from the book and from the life. But that, again, I do not agree with the Hebrew formulations either. I think that they are entirely incorrect. There are many problems with the Hebrew. Many. I refer you to the Bible study if you are interested in what they are. No passage which implies it occurs to mind, and the extant rituals certainly give no hint of such a conception, or of any but the most personal and material views of the nature of things. They seem to have thought that there was an archangel named Ratziel in exactly the same sense as there was a statesman named Richelieu, an individual being living in a definite place. He had possibly certain powers of a somewhat metaphysical order. He might be in two places at once, for example. Though even the possibility of so simple a feat, in the case of spirits, seems to be denied by certain passages and extant conjurations, which tell the spirit that if he happens to be in chains in a particular place in hell, or if some other magician is conjuring him so that he cannot come, then let him send a spirit of similar nature, or otherwise avoid the difficulty. All right, now we'll fall back to this footnote. I wanted to finish the sentence. He could do this provided that he can travel with the speed exceeding that of light as he does. See A.S. Eddington, Space, Time, and Gravitation. Also, what means at once. All right, so it is entirely possible for an entity to be in multiple places because they are not limited by the corporeal. Right? We are the corporeal. The entities are not unless they have taken possession of a vessel. And while you may see them, it is not in the same physical vessel that we have as humans. And they are on a different level in a different way. And so it is entirely possible, although I cannot say definite, that they can exist in two places at the same time because they are simply spirits. Right? They are entities. They are forces. And most of the time, if you are actually seeing them, it is you giving the ability to see them so that it is not an overwhelming experience. But also, right, I don't recommend the calling upon these things. The invocation of these entities, to me, is intrinsically opposed to most of what you're probably trying to do. And then you also have the whole problem of making sure that it is the correct entity. The ones that are aligned for the detriment of humankind can lie to you, up to and including the motivations and what type of entity they are. Back to the text. But of course, so vulgar a conception would not occur to the student of the Kabbalah. It is just possible that the Magi wrote their conjurations on this crude hypothesis in order to avoid the clouding of the mind by doubt and metaphysical speculation. He who became the Master Tyrian was once confronted by this very difficulty. And once again may pay attention that Master Tyrian is Aleister Crowley. And he refers to himself as different because he probably had some mental issues. And by probably, I definitely mean definitely. Being determined to instruct mankind, he sought a simple statement of his object. his will was sufficiently informed by common sense to decide him to teach man the next step, the thing which was immediately above him. If he would have had it, and he did not, and I say that again emphatically, blood magic does work. It is stupid. It gives you negative consequences every time. And again, you can go back to his life and see the fruit. He might have called this God, or the higher self, or the Algayes, or Adi Buddha, or 61 other things. That is a specific number. But he had discovered that these were all one, yet that each one represented some theory of the universe, which would ultimately be shattered by criticism. For he had already passed through the realm of reason and knew that every statement contained an absurdity. He therefore said, "Let me declare this work under the title, The Obtaining of the Knowledge and Conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, because the theory implied in these words is so patently absurd that only simpletons would waste much time in analyzing it. It would be accepted as a convention, and no one would incur the grave danger of building a philosophical system upon it. With this understanding, we may rehabilitate the Hebrew systems of invocations. The mind is the great enemy, so by invoking enthusiastically a person whom we know not to exist, we are rebuking that mind. Yet we should not refrain altogether from philosophizing in the light of the Holy Kabbalah. We should accept the magical hierarchy as a more or less convenient classification of the facts of the universe as they are known to us, and as our knowledge and understanding of those facts increase, so should we endeavor to adjust our idea of what we mean by any symbol. This is where I'm going to point out the Pitcast, right? We are doing a study on Saturdays, noon Central Time, with Jason from Green Country Agroforestry, where we are going through the Hebrew alphabet in an attempt to get a greater understanding of what the letters are and what they mean, the spiritual symbology behind it, the esoteric meanings that can be drawn from it. The words are a language which appear to be pretty primal. I am not going to give the Hebrews credit for it because they definitely got it from somewhere else, right? Their language was not their own. They take large portions of it from the surrounding peoples, and that is not a bad thing. There's also the whole theory that they didn't even exist up until the Second Temple period, that they were created whole cloth out of the people that were already in the land by the Empire of Babylon. I don't have confirmation of that particular theory. I have just become aware of it. I am beginning to understand and to investigate those things. When I do have more to speak upon that, you can bet I will, because if that is true, and it might be, right, there is significant reason to believe that Moses never existed. There is significant reason to believe that the David never existed. Right? There are really good reasons to believe these things. There is a whole conspiracy that the First Temple did not even exist. There is another conspiracy that the Second Temple was not in the location where it is attributed to, right? The Wailing Wall not being part of the structure. I see you, Jason. Those are all definite things that are possible, right? And part of what we are doing over on the Pitcast is getting the foundation for further investigation. I don't speak Hebrew. I don't know the language. We are getting somewhat of a grasp over with the written side of it so that I can do an exploration of Kabbalah at some point. I cannot do that with the current knowledge that I have, right? If I don't know what the letters are, I won't get the experience. I won't understand what they have in the Kabbalah. And so we need the groundwork in order to be able to investigate those things. That is coming at some point. It'll probably be on the other side of Carl Jung, but we'll see how it goes. But if you are interested in learning more about the Hebrew language and the meaning behind the actual letters, like they mean things, right? Aleph is the separation between the this and the that. That is the very first step of cognition, right? Understanding that there is a this and a that, and the difference between the this and the that is very important. Each one of the letters has a significance both in the physical plane and symbolically spiritually, and so there is knowledge to be pulled from there, even if the Hebrew people were not correct in their laws, the application, or their religion, which is a definite thing. So, But if you are interested in further exploration of those, we are here noon on Saturdays Central Time. There's a few episodes already up. We have done 3 weeks so far. Alright, back to the text. At the same time, let us reflect that there is a certain definite consensus of experience as to the correlation of the various beings of the hierarchy with the observed facts of magic. In the simple matter of astral vision, for example, one striking case may be quoted. Without telling him what it was, the Master Tyrion once recited as an invocation Sappho's Ode to Venus before a probationer of the A Delta, who was ignorant of Greek, the language of the ode. The disciple then went on an astral journey, and everything seen by him was without exception harmonious with Venus. I'm assuming that has something to do with Sappho. This was true down to the smallest detail. He even obtained all the 4 color scales of Venus with absolute correctness. Considering that he saw something like 100 symbols in all, the odds against coincidence are incalculably great. Such an experience, and the records of A Delta contain dozens of similar cases, affords proof, as absolute as any proof can be in this world of illusion, that the correspondences in Liber 777 really represent facts in nature. Now, here's where I'm going to talk again. I have aventation. I cannot do this, right? I cannot willfully create any image in my mind. I can, nowadays, see colors for the first time in my life, like in the entirety of my life. And so, if I were to partake in something like this, the visions that I would see would be entirely external. That is why I believe the ones that I have had, the ones that I outline in this book. I do believe that these things are possible. I do believe that astral projection is possible. I do believe that you are able to go out and see. Now, whether or not everyone has done that with effectiveness is definitely up for debate. Edgar Cayce, as the example, has many instances where there were verifiably, or things that he saw were verified through actions, right? He saw this is causing an illness within this person, and they changed that thing and it healed him. He was able to locate things that were lost. He was able to find things. But in addition to that, there were several instances that are verifiably untrue. He said that it would be this way and it was not. That is undeniable. Right now, part of that is that he was seeing true things, and part of that was that he was wanting to see things. If you are aligned with seeing the true things and you are not bringing in what you want to see, this is what happens. I do not doubt that this could have happened even in the A Delta, who was entirely aligned incorrectly with none of the correct procedures. It is still something that is possible to anyone. And so I do believe that this is a possibility, but I do not have extensive experience with it, right? I have had 1 or 2 where I willfully had some experience where I saw something. I didn't create the thing that I saw, and it was apparently related to the Akashic records. I didn't really pull any knowledge from it. I wasn't able to identify the things that I saw. It was completely foreign to me. And again, I do not have the capacity to do it willfully. So I do believe that these things are possible, but I do not have the experience to expound upon them correctly. Back to the text. It suggests itself that this straightforward system of magic was perhaps never really employed at all. One might maintain that the invocations which have come down to us are but the ruins of the temple of magic. Yes, absolutely. I will stand on that, right? Not that the invocations don't work, that they are unnecessary, that they were created because people did not know how to do it the other way, which is using none, which is what I talk about. And so I do believe that one can maintain that invocations have come down to us are the ruins of the temple of magic. The exorcisms might have been committed to writing for the purpose of memorizing them, while it was forbidden to make any record of the really important parts of the ceremony. Such details of ritual as we possess are meager and unconvincing, and though much success has been attained in the quite conventional, exoteric way by both Father Herbert Durabo and many of his colleagues, That is untrue. Yet ceremonies of this character have always remained tedious and difficult. And once again, I refer you to the wiki, right? I'm not saying that he did not have results. I am saying that he did not have good results. I am saying that he did not have permanent results. I am saying that he pulled nothing but misery into his life with one very brief exception. That is what I am saying. I am saying that he was entirely misaligned with the actual practice of magic entirely. I am saying that he had no knowledge of the things of which he is speaking. That is what I am saying. This is a lie. He did not. Frater Perdebra, I can't speak on his colleagues. We don't have the record of that. It may be possible that they figured something out, but he did not. Frater Perdebravo, if you were unaware, is Master Tyrion, is Aleister Crowley, and I forget what his original name was. He changed that too. He identified himself as 4 different people in his life, at least. And that's not counting the beast, which would have been the 5th one, and he did count himself as the beast of Revelation. And that's obviously some good benefits, right? That's obviously casting the correct spells. That is obviously getting from the conventional esoteric way, right? No, it is not. It has seemed as if the success were obtained almost in spite of the ceremony. Yeah, exactly that. With no doubt whatsoever to me. Exactly that. Wow. Bro, the stuff they tell you, right? They tell you. Like Levi with his ending telling you that he was never really doing these things on purpose with the intention of being correct. He told you that. He told you in his own book that he was full of shit. He is telling you right here, I'm full of shit. It seemed as if the success were obtained almost in spite of. Yes, that is true. In any case, they are the more mysterious parts of the ritual which have evoked the divine force. Such conjurations as those of the Goetia leave one cold, although notably in the second conjuration, there is a crude attempt to use that formula of commemoration of which we spoke in the preceding chapter. And that is going to bring us to the end of this particular section. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a somewhat difficult series of topics. I understand I have some unconventional beliefs, and I have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something I apologize for, because I am here to discern these things. I have results, right? I have outlined in this book, and it is thin, right? There's about 25,000 words. It is relatively small. You can read it in about 2 hours, depending on your reading level. You will not read it only one time because there is information condensed. I have taken out the fluff. I've talked about the results of the things that I have actually done, and here they are, right? I was injured 2011, right? However long that was, 14 years ago. I was injured, right? 14 discs or 13 discs. I had 7 bulges, 6 herniations, 3 spinal impingements, stenosis, scoliosis, and degenerative disc disorder. On top of that, over the last course of in 2020-ish, roughly, I developed a cyst in my throat, which took away from me the ability to speak at volume at all. I was able to speak in a very raspy voice with a lot of exertion, not for a long period of time. Over the course of trying to improve myself, I decided in 2019 that I was going to take charge of my health, and so I started walking, and during that I started praying, and during that I started meditating, and during that I started doing the alignment things that I just talked about in this video. At some point, I got to the point where I started asking for healing for myself, because that was something that I did not do for the first decade of being injured at all. I didn't feel like I was worthy of healing. But then I started asking for healing, and in the process of what I do, walking every morning, I was revealed to me how to do it for myself. I have received those results now. That is at the will of God. I do believe that entirely and emphatically. I do believe that the manipulation of the electromagnetic forces of creation, which is the Holy Spirit, only happens with the consent of the Creator. Now, you can use those for negativity or positivity, but there is a consent level required. I have, you can hear me a little bit coughy today. I've got some phlegm. It's a high pollen day, right? I am talking with, we're 49 minutes in. This is pretty close to my natural voice. Like, this is my natural voice, and I can talk right here. But I am not quite, even though I've been doing this for a while, to the point where it is reliable enough. Like, it still cracks, it still does. But I can speak there for a while nowadays, too. The fact that I can talk right here in this tone of voice, which is remarkably close to my normal tone of voice, varying in tone, changing the inflections, none of that was possible when I began this channel. You can go back and see it. But over the course of what I've done, the cyst is gone and my throat is healing. I had shoulder surgery back in 2007. I got 70 to 80% of my function back. I now have 100%. I can do all kinds of things that I have not been able to do in 20 years with this shoulder. My back, I used to wake up at a 7 every single day on the pain scale. It goes from 0 to 10, right? 0 is nothing, 10 is can't do anything, right? I woke up at a 7 almost every day for over a decade. I'm waking up at a 0. I'm waking up healed. Now, I have not gone and had the MRI to see if the bulges and the herniations are gone. I don't have that kind of money to just waste, right? I wake up and I'm not hurting. I can do things in my yard. It's not my back that limits me these days. These are all healings that I have affected for myself through the things that I'm talking about here, right? Through finding the balance, through directing the energies, through the sword, doing the things, I have results. Those results are not the same results that Mr. Crowley had. And if you go back and read through his wiki, you can see that he lived a pretty miserable life. He did not have a committed partner. He did not have love in his life. He didn't have abundance in any way, shape, or form whatsoever for the entirety of his life. I do. Besides the fact that I'm healed, I have a wife that loves me and I love her. I have children that love me, then I love them. I have been provided for my life. I have the fruits of the Spirit. Now, do I have physical wealth? No. That may be coming, that may be not. Now, I am perfectly fine either way. I would really like to be provided for, but I don't manifest physical wealth because of the rules that are in the book. I mean, if you are attempting to do wealth, it's really hard to have your motivations correct, to be aligned correctly. That greed and charity really ties into pulling in wealth. That's not to say that you cannot do it. You just have to be careful. And that might be a self-limiting belief that I have that is holding me back from something. I have been receiving indications about that for the last week or so. And so there may be some of that I need to do. It is something that I am seriously considering, right? But again, there is the motivations, the alignment portion of that. All of that to say, I have results. He did not. You can go back and read through his wiki. He was sick for his entire life. He did not have love for his entire life, including his childhood, which is a whole different thing, right? But as he grew older, and he was unable to commit to a single person, he was unable to commit to a single path or a single course or even a single god, right? He was hypocritical all the way through his life. He followed whatever god would happen to be convenient, right? If he was in Arabia, it was Allah. If he was in Scandinavia, it was probably Odin. He didn't care. It didn't matter to him. He was just calling upon whatever name was convenient for the area that he was in. That is obvious from the wiki, from the things he says about himself. And so, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. The point of this is, right, I do have some knowledge. I don't claim to have the only way. I don't claim to have the only path, but I am on a path. I do have a way. I do have results. I have manifested into my life. These are real things. I have written an instruction manual so that you can follow if you so choose. That is not to say that you have to walk my path exactly. I mean, I don't know. But you can get close enough to get the results. I mean, I have shown the way. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that was said. Put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership or picking up a copy of the book where I teach you to do magic responsibly. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt's Take. Peace.